Don't you think it's about time for a podcast that's more fulfilling? One that's about the vibrant exchange of ideas and perspectives that happens when we actually come together. We got you covered. Welcome to the Deep Blue Project, where the depths of conversation meet the waves of personal experience. This is a real, raw, and unscripted show about everything from leadership lessons to self-awareness, wellness, and the latest current events. We cover it all. We have a rotating cast of guests as we share our personal stories, insights, and opinions on the issues that matter most. Plus, we have a blast while doing it. The Deep Blue Project. It's not just a podcast, it's an experience. And now your host, Chris Workman.
All right, hello everybody, and welcome back to this episode of the Deep Blue Project. I have a very special guest today, and a lot of times people do ask me, they're like, when you're on social media and talk about LinkedIn all the time, like, does that really worth it? So my conversation today is with someone who I believe makes it worth it, and it's what you use things for and how you use them. It's like anything else. You get out of it what you put into it, and you find some good people. So I'd like to introduce you to my friend, Vickie Speed. Vickie is the CEO and founder of Blue Cancer Connect, and I am so happy to have her with us today. Hey, Vic, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thank you. And to answer that, LinkedIn is amazing if you use it right.
Yes. Well, Vickie and I got to speaking because I had seen her pop up on LinkedIn and the things that she has started doing with cancer for law enforcement due to a tragedy she had in her life, and I'm going to let her speak about that, but I had made a mention of it because back in 2009, I was diagnosed with renal cancer, and as a law enforcement officer and much of all of what we do, some of that discussion between her and I led to, like, we didn't have any of that. Like, I didn't have anybody that I could talk to or deal with. It was just like dealing with another thing. So what she's doing is fantastic. But I'm going to let Vickie tell you a little bit about the Blue Cancer Connect and how she got here, because it is a story that will melt your heart. It melted mine. We had the opportunity to speak about 7-8 months ago on the phone, had a nice long, almost 2-hour conversation. So I'm going to let her discuss it and let her talk to you about it, and I'm going to shut my trap. Vic, go ahead, tell her.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate this opportunity. So sadly, I was launched into this by my husband's death. He was a 16-year veteran for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and he was diagnosed 6 weeks after running Baker to Vegas with stage 4 cancer. 26 months later, he passed. And kind of like you said, we were just catapulted into this. And thank God we had an amazing support system. The department was behind us. His station was behind us. His partners never left us. So I had this incredible experience of, oh my God, we're in this, my husband's fighting for his life, but we had all the support that we needed. So unfortunately, he did pass. And even down to the funeral, to here we're almost 7 years later, I'm still supported by the department. And, I thought at some point I might help a family in Los Angeles County. Maybe if they needed assistance, it would definitely be way down the road. November of 2022, I got a phone call about helping with a fundraiser for one of our young deputies. At the time, he was 27. He had stage 4 cancer. And of course, I said yes. I thought, this isn't going to kill me. I'll do it. So I helped him raise a little bit of money, and we went and did a drive-by with LA County Fire. And his name was Ray Bame. And Ray walked out of his house, and I was looking at a 27-year-old with now double stage 4 cancer, probably weighed 100 pounds, and I knew he wasn't going to make it, and I actually just burst into tears. So I backed down the driveway, threw my sunglasses on, and it was literally in that moment that I asked myself, what am I doing? I know how to do this. I've done it. I'm looking at all these men and women, the same ones that were there for my family, and now, I'm looking at a young man who's younger than my son, and I decided that day it just was time. And I really didn't know what this looked like. I had no idea what was out there. So I had spent about the next 6, 7 months actually traveling the US, and I just started hitting the cancer hospitals, oncology, talking to agencies, talking to our agency, talking to any officer I could find. And I just came to realize there's nothing out there. I couldn't find anything. There's a couple nonprofits, but they had shut down with COVID. And I thought, well, that makes sense. But they either did just peer or it was just kind of very minimal. So, I thought, gosh, I don't know. I don't even know what this is going to look like. So I went to the City of Hope, which is the biggest cancer hospital out here in Southern California. That's who treated my husband. And I had asked them for a meeting, and I said, hey, would you be willing to support what I'm doing? Would you be willing to kind of steer me and guide me and assist our officers? Whatever that looks like out here in California. And they said yes. Like immediately they said yes. And I'll be honest with you, they have not slowed down since the day we had that meeting. So that was really the beginning. And March 28th, which is my husband's birthday of 2023, I made the official announcement. We were launched. We were up and running. And again, I didn't know what this looked like. I still was thinking, Southern California, LA County Sheriff's Department. And I think it was 3 months later, American Police Beat had done an article on this. And before I knew it, my phone was ringing off the hook. And you would ask, how did you find out about me? How do you know? And it kept going back to the article. So it was very, very quickly that I had to make an honest decision about what I was going to do with this. And I decided immediately we were going nationwide. We were not going to stop. We would grow this thing as quick as it was growing or as slow as it was growing. But I came to understand that there is nothing out there to help officers, their families, civilians, employees of departments, and even departments. It's not a conversation they've ever had. So that's really what started this whole thing.
No, that is totally awesome. And I think that once I feel you when you talk about you never know like what drives you or what pulls you in a certain direction. Because I sit and think about things all the time and go, did I ever think I was going to be doing a podcast? Did I ever think I'd be telling people how screwed up I was? Like, do I ever, it takes a lot to go, you don't know how you got down that road, but you end up there, and you end up there with people that, like, just us meeting each other or the people that we know and now, kind of talk to and that are in that same space that we trust and we speak to, that you never know how you got there. And you're just here and you're thankful that you have those people around you to help you. And one of the things is, I got to say, like, we have the Blue Cancer Connect, and I love that Vicki allowed me to do this as part of our partner and our resources for the Deep Blue Project, because everybody needs to have those connections. If we make those connections, we're able to share those connections with others. And that's how we grow this network of trusted individuals, I think, is the easiest way to put it. I don't want to travel down that rabbit hole of what's out there because people know it, but you have to have those individuals that we can pass along to our cohorts and to our brothers and sisters to say, like, this is a safe space to go to if you need help. This is where you should be going. And what you're doing out there, I'm sure, and I think we touched on this a little bit, so I'd like you to expand on it, is how you're expanding on the things that you're doing out with LA County, because I think you're growing that also, correct?
Yes, that is correct. So in January 24, made a really bold decision. I called Hall of Justice, which is where our command staff is, and I asked for a meeting. And, they were very leery. And finally, I got through to somebody, and I did do I'm Detective Speed's widow. I'd like to talk about cancer. So I was given 15 minutes. They gave me a day and a time, and they said, you have 15 minutes. I thought, boy, here we go. So I went down there, and 15 minutes turned into about 45. So you feel like, maybe I did good. I don't know. You walk out of there. I didn't hear anything for a while. And about 2 months later, I get a phone call, and it's an invitation to present to the sheriff and the entire command staff what it is I want to do. And, you're like, oh my God, but it's like a week later. So, oh my God, I have to build a PowerPoint. I got to be ready. I got to be.
Right.
So I went down there and very blessed to do this, presented to them, and they loved it. And really, what I had asked for is a partnership. I didn't want to just talk about cancer. I want to partner with agencies. Meaning, all agencies are different. Obviously, LA County is very big. Most aren't of this size. But I want to bring cancer into wellness. I want to start talking about it. How do we educate our deputies? But then how do we get them diagnosed sooner? And, like my husband, running B to V, and then 6 weeks later, he's at stage 4. How do we avoid that? How do we slow this thing down? We're not going to stop it, but how do we slow it down? So they allowed me to present. And actually, I was walking out the door and one of the commanders pulled me aside. He said, I'm actually going to utilize you right now. My sister just got diagnosed. I don't know if you'd be willing to help us. Absolutely. So we were actually able to help her. She just hit remission, which is amazing. And I didn't know where we went from there. We talked about, what a great idea, but you walk out of there and you have nothing in your hands. So I really didn't know where this went. So about a month later, I got a phone call that the sheriff and psych services and the assistant sheriff wanted to meet one-on-one. Went in, prepared, same thing. You have 15 minutes. And the sheriff basically asked me, he said, what do you want? And I have about 15 minutes. What do you want from us? And I was ready and I laid it out. I wanted a solid partnership. And they said yes. I didn't even leave there, and we all shook hands. And October of last year, we made a public announcement in front of the Hall of Justice with media, which was amazing. And we announced that we were the first agency in the nation to actually bring cancer into wellness, that we were going to start educating, we were going to start doing screenings, we were going to try and slow this down, but also provide resources once you get that diagnosis, and just, understanding that this agency is behind you and your family. And I'll tell you what, it's been the greatest thing I've ever done. This department has been so good to me. And I know anyone who's listening to this, LA County is kind of on the chopping block right now. And I do know there's a lot going on, but I tell everyone, as far as cancer, they have got it right. They absolutely have got it right.
Yeah, I know it's a tough thing. I can go back to and you talk about screening. So I mean, I'd like to kind of blow that in, because I was a lucky person. I mean, I was kind of lucky with when I got diagnosed with cancer back in 2009. It was actually found by mistake. Like I wasn't even at the doctors. I wasn't even at the doctors for like anything that was showing itself related to cancer. It was actually a totally different thing. And I tell this story all the time. People laugh at me. I went and I had to have a ultrasound done on my right side, and the person who was doing my ultrasound was kind of new. So the girl said, "Hey, you know what? I'm practicing. Can you roll over to your other side and let me do the left side also?" When she did the left side, I left and I wasn't even home. I think I was only like 2 minutes away from the imaging center, and my phone rang, and it was my doctor who said, "You need to turn around and go back and get a CAT scan." And she, by doing that, had found it. Like I had no symptoms, I had no issues. But once they tell you that, I mean, just for people that know, and Vicky's, I mean, had to deal with this. You don't know what to do at that time. Like your brain is just, you're in unbelievable mode. Yeah, and I had no one at that time to turn around and go, "What do you do? Like, who do you look at? Like, what's the next step? What can I do? How fast can you do whatever?" And for me, I mean, fortunately, it was something that could be handled or taken care of. But that's a shock to people. And if you don't have a place to turn to or someone to look for or to make a phone call to, that could be devastating in itself. And, I thank you for kind of what you've taken on, because that gives people that extra bit of hope. That gives people that knowledge that they can reach out to someone who could say, "Hey, Vic, I just got this. Can you help me?" And you have that, you now have that network of people that you can point people to.
Well, Chris, if you don't mind, I'd kind of like to take your scenario to just further share what this would look like for someone. So say you had called us and, "Hey, I'm so-and-so with this department. I just got diagnosed." So our questions are going to be, do you have a treating doctor oncologist? Do you need a second opinion? And a lot of time, most answers are, I don't know where I'm going, or this is where I'd like to go, or I do need a second opinion. And then we're going to ask you some really personal things like, does your agency know? Are you guys okay financially? Do you have leave on the books? Is cancer covered in your state, in your department? And it's very 50-50 in the nation. And I know we've helped file a lot of workers' comp cases. We have great presumptive laws in California, but we do help with that. And actually, the FOP's been really good about kind of helping us with our officers on the back end. So that's been great. Oh, and then we ask you, what can we do for you? What does your family need at this time? And probably the biggest piece of what we do, Chris, is we would have paired you with another officer who is in remission. And I think that's one of the biggest pieces of what we do. It's for your peace of mind. It's for you to talk man to man, but to also talk about the job. I know it's a grave concern. Do I have a job? Am I going to make it? Am I going bankrupt? Dude, am I going to die? Well, you're not going to talk to me about that. But we have found that's probably one of our biggest pieces. And then some of the phone calls that we get are actually, I have 3 months. I'm calling you because I don't know how to talk to my wife about death. And I'd also like to talk about, I don't know how to get my life in order. So we've done a lot of that also, but we stay on this journey with you. I don't even want to say till the end because we stay in contact with everybody. We have thankfully we have a lot who are at end of treatment. Not too many have hit remission, but they're heading there. We have lost a few along the way. Unfortunately, we have attended a few funerals. But we try and stay in contact with the families. I think the biggest reason is we just talked about this yesterday with a mom. We all need each other in law enforcement, and we really are a family. But I think with cancer, because this is such a new conversation, if we're going to get the attention that we need to this and the funding that we need and the recognition and just getting what we want, which is cancer is part of law enforcement. Exposures are very real. It's going to take all of us doing this together. I'm one person, we're one team, we're one nonprofit, but it is going to take the community of law enforcement coming together and, where you just start shaking trees and saying, hey, I have cancer, I have cancer, I have cancer. And then agencies kind of being forced to say, wow, cancer is really an issue. And we're going to have to start doing something about it. So that's what a phone call looks like. And like I said, there's every resource possible that we have, from attorneys to living trusts, medical suppliers, hospice companies. I think we're partnered with just about every hospital in the nation. Been very blessed that the doctors at City of Hope here are connected worldwide. So we're able to help really an officer in any state. So we have kind of direct oncology to oncology, which has just happened very recently. That's been a huge blessing. A lot of kids being diagnosed of our sworn. So this has been new in the last month. But, we will take on whatever is thrown at us with our law enforcement family, we will take it on. And if we don't have the answer, we're going to find it.
And that's the beautiful thing. I mean, because it definitely is something that's lacking. So in talking with what is lacking, I mean, are you seeing now that you're finding more and more people outside of LA? I know you've said you've visited other places, but are you now starting to see that kind of pick up as far as getting contacts from other states or other people wanting to maybe do something like this in their area? Well,
our main focus is the agencies, but where we're seeing the biggest numbers is the East Coast. And I'm not sure why, because we don't have data. That's probably one of our biggest goals on the back end is how do we get law enforcement data to actually prove this. East Coast is bigger than out here on the West Coast. Those are most of our phone calls. And, I think our partnerships are we're looking at the agencies. We're looking at the agencies to allow us to come into wellness, to allow us to start having these conversations. And I get it. For a lot of agencies, it is the liability side of this. But I just think these numbers aren't lying. And if we're only 2 years into this, I just keep saying, so what do you think the numbers really look like? In 2 years' time, I believe we've already hit 18 states. And just in the last 2 weeks, we have a 21-year-old, a 23-year-old, and a 27-year-old. And, our biggest concern is, and it's not even the cancer side of this, but it's agencies not knowing how to handle this and turning their back on these young kids. And these kids don't have the time on. They don't have the leave on the books. We have one that I believe August 2nd, he will have no money, no insurance, no money. The department doesn't want to talk to him because they don't know how to handle it. And, I explained that to him. I don't think it's intentional, but I think when you don't know what to do, you just don't do anything. So our biggest issue as an organization is departments failing. I won't say abandoning, failing.
I think the hardest part when we're discussing these things, and this conversation obviously happens within the circles that we're in, is a lot of times they focus on, mental wellness is but I always say it's officer health and mental wellness. It's everything as a package. It's not just the mental health part, because it's the mental health part we know now is so critical, but the health part is just as critical, because they both work together. Because if your health is failing, if you're having health problems, that's putting a lot of mental strain on you also. So if you're not having that way to turn, and I'm telling you this from just personal experience, if you don't know where to turn, or you don't know where you're going to go, you spend a lot of time spiraling into, what am I going to do? To your point, am I going to lose my job? Are they going? So the funny thing, is it's funny now for me, but I don't mean to make light of it. But the place where I was when I had cancer, like they were in the midst of doing their political BS and their thing, and the only thing that kind of delayed me leaving there was me having cancer, quite honestly, because they didn't want to do it while I was dealing with it. And it wasn't that I got fired. It wasn't any of that. It was just turmoil inside the department with other individuals. And then you kind of get the fallout, but it kind of delayed that for a little bit, because I think they felt bad, because they were like, wow, well, you're out recovering from cancer. We don't want to cause a bunch of crap while you're dealing with that. But you look at them and go, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter. You're going to do what you're going to do, but do you take care of your people? I think that's our biggest vision for much of what you're doing, what people like Survive First and Trauma Behind the Badge and other people that we talk to and deal with. This is what these individuals are out here trying to do, to take care of everything as a whole. And cancer is part of that. I mean, dealing with a cancer diagnosis is part of that. And having to feel that out and try to learn from that is part and parcel to everything that we're doing.
No, I agree completely, Chris. And kind of to add on to what you said, so when we launched this program in LA County, so I was assigned a command staff to kind of help me build this. And we meet pretty regularly, but it was like, what does this really look like? And as the numbers started coming in, and they're pretty staggering in our own department, little shocking, actually. So as now we have data. Now we're talking about factual numbers, about factual cases. They actually moved me to wellness. They said it's great as a department we're doing this, but really what you're working on is, we have officers whose wives are battling stage 4 cancer, and we're asking them to come to work and work 100 hours of overtime. And it really is, it's about their mental health, their well-being, and I think I was really aware because I had the opportunity to share, and I'm sure you went through this. When my husband had cancer, he was 6'4", big man, great shape, solid guy, great cop. About a year into it, he became very mentally and emotionally fragile. And it's just what cancer does. And by the end, it was really heartbreaking what it did to him. So I remembered that, and I thought, it couldn't just be him. This has to be what a cancer diagnosis does, is it really just breaks you down. You're fighting for your life. There's so many unknowns. You think, God, I want to go back to work, but that's almost the last thing you're worrying about. But yeah, I do remember just physically, mentally, and emotionally what it did to my husband. I know it got to a point when we went places, because we work and live in the same place, he always had somebody with him, especially like in the ERs and in the hospitals. He wasn't packing anymore. He wasn't strong enough to take anybody on. Just his mind wasn't in that space. And So I do remember that. And I do believe it belongs in wellness. I think it was a great move on LA County. And right now, I'm going to kind of switch gears. We're actually launching a peer training. So we're going to start training the actual peer inside sworn in these agencies with, how do you assist your fellow officer when they have a cancer diagnosis, other than saying, hey, I'm really sorry, let me know if you need anything, or maybe bringing you a meal. How do we get in the trenches with them and stay in the trenches with them and really help them? What does that look like? So yeah, I do believe it's part of wellness, 100%.
Yeah, I think you touched on something I want to go back to, and I have to give this to you because I mean, on your end, that had to be a lot on you also. So having the families as part of this, having the people engaged, because I'm sure your husband's like many of us, or and I can just say, as I was at the time, like I didn't want to tell anybody. I was like, I can deal with this myself. I couldn't, but I did. But you don't want to. But when you go back to having that conversation and people saying, I have cancer, or I have stage 4 cancer, and I don't know how to talk to my wife, or I don't know how to talk to my family and tell them, I'm going to die. So they're bearing this alone. But that they're seeing that, that they're feeling that, because you can't hide something like that forever.
Well, so, Chris, let me ask you this. Where were, when you heard the words, you have cancer, I mean, you carried it 24/7, right?
Yeah.
Like in the back of your mind, no matter what was going on, you were walking around going, I got cancer.
Yeah. Damn. Like, what the hell am I going to do? And not knowing is, I think that it's a very, I guess, coming from my point of view at that time, it's a very unknowing, circumstance. Like, you don't know. Like, you could talk to doctors and I remember talking to my doctor and I just wanted it out the next day. I'm like, can you take it out like today? I'll sign paperwork. I'll go in and, can you take it out? Can you do whatever? And I followed through what they could do, and they told me, no, you're good. And I ended up, it was 6 months before I had my surgery to remove my kidney to get rid of the cancer. And the whole time I was freaking out until it was done. We look at it and go, wow, the doctors know that it can't do so-and-so, or it can't do. I don't know what it's doing to me. But here's what happens afterwards. If you do go into remission, or you do have it removed, for 10, 12 years, every time I got a cold, every time I felt something that wasn't right, every time that I had a pain in a place that I never normally had pain, you worried about what it could be. And that was the worst part. Because when you're sitting there and you don't, and I knew I had to go to a doctor. I knew I had for all you people who are out there going, you got a cold, I don't go to a doctor, I don't do this. I forced myself because I needed to know. And every time I went, and every year when I had to go get a new blood test, or every year when I had to get a new CAT scan, I was so scared for that time period before I got an answer back of whether they'd find something or not. And that was, for a 10-year period, that was kind of rough. So,
well, and I think to elaborate on what you're saying, Chris, because we see this a lot in what we're doing now, you're in remission, you're back to work, but we'll say every June you carry this heavy, heavy burden. And then you go get tested. Now you got to wait for the results. So it's like up until June, you want to, late May, you want to start throwing up because you have this burden on you. But we want you to go do your job. We want you to keep your head in the game. We want you to do all these things. And in the toughest time to be a cop, as far as I'm concerned, it's never been like this. And then we want you to carry this. And every year we want to do this, but we don't want to talk about it. I think I've actually, kind of what you said, I've come to understand, I almost think it's a little bit worse, the remission side. We watch a lot of our officers call and struggle, want to talk to somebody, which I love all the peer that we have. But I think that's why so many officers in remission want to be involved with this, because they need that outlet. As much as they want to be there for somebody, they also need to talk about, hey, I'm in remission. I still go through this every year. I know where you're at, brother. I get it. Call me when you're going for your testing. And yeah, I think it's a really heavy, heavy burden to carry.
Well, I think it's amazing. I think the peer part is great, because of that. Because I had wish I'd had someone to go, called somebody up who had the same, the same kind of cancer, or like, it's not all, like, everybody's situation is going to be different. So let me just preface that. Renal cancer for one person, for another can all be different. It could be diagnosed different. It could be different stages. It could be anything. But if you still have, if I was able to speak to someone who had the surgery, who dealt with it, who may have been past it. I mean, I'm 15 years past it now. I mean, my mindset is totally different. Not going to say that it doesn't cross my mind when certain things happen that I'm not, it's always going to be there. It's never going to go away. But to be able to do that, if I'd have had someone I could call up and go, hey, what did you experience when you had this done? How did you deal with, or how did you experience, that time when you had to go to testing, and how did that all play out? Because it kind of would level, if it's coming from somebody or from somebody that you feel, it lowers, the anxiety's not going to go away, but it's at least going to lower. It's not going to be as intense as it would be as if you have nobody, because we all know where your mind can go. Your mind can go anywhere. So I think that's a fabulous thing that you guys are starting to do that will help a lot of people. I'm just saying that from personal experience. I think if I'd have had that, I think I would have been a lot different in certain areas where I was dealing with that issue. I think it would have helped
and
a
I
lot.
think what we've seen lately, I think this is one of the reasons, like people like you, Chris, like whether you're retired or you're a seasoned officer, we're seeing cancer so young. They're babies. They need someone to help them navigate this. They don't even have the years on to have the department experience, or they're scared to death to say anything. They're, like I said, I didn't do this job. I can only go off of our story and how things were. And I realized it's not like that for people. And it's a driving force for me. But I look at these really, really young, both men and women, that 2 years on, 3 years on, am I going to die? And are they going to fire me? I mean, I'm not even vetted. I'm not even. So, I hope and pray that just as this thing gets bigger, that we will have more and more sworn that want to be involved, that want to be that mentor. I think it's just such an important piece. And I don't think that will ever change. And even, like I said, even if you're in remission, and I think you still need that yearly phone call. We just had one about a month ago. He's not in the clear yet. And he said, I need to talk to somebody. I am freaking out right now. I'm like, yeah, we'll hook you up. Give me 30 minutes. And he texts me and he's like, thank God, man, he pulled me off the ceiling. I'm good. We just need each other. Honestly, we need each other.
Yeah, and I think that's one of if you make yourself available, and I'm going to tell you now, like Vic, I mean, we've had this conversation on a different issue. I'm always here because I know I wish if you need me or I'd love to be part of that, because I mean, if I can help someone understand that part and just ease their mind a little bit, that's the C. I used to call it the C word. I know I used to be like, that's the ugliest word in my vocabulary. And people have said, I had one person tell me once, he goes, well, you had renal cancer. That's the kind of cancer to have you're going to have. And I said, excuse me, what are you talking about?
Well, what is the big joke when people tell you, oh my God, you got the good cancer?
Yeah, like, what is that? I used to go, are you kidding me? Like, I don't want anybody to have any of it. But being able to have that conversation would help a lot, because you can tell people what you go through, what the surgery is about, what you had to do, and to have that person, or to have those people for the people that are reaching out to you, it's really important. I mean, I can't stress how much I wish I would have had that.
I'll take it a step further because it is getting so young. I had about a 2-hour conversation with a mom yesterday. This is her baby. This is her 22-year-old son. He's got 2 years of treatment. He's got, it looks really good, young, in great shape. They're very, very hopeful. But, it's like she said, she goes, God, it's so nice to just talk to somebody who's been through this. And, my heart was broken because I thought, God, I couldn't even imagine this being my child. For me, this was a big thing for me. I never had anybody to talk to. I was head down. We were taking this thing on, and I'm not even sure I thought about it, but there was no resources. So it wasn't even a thing. But, I remember I tell people at the end, I was so lost in knowing he was going to die and knowing what we were in probably the last month. And I didn't have anyone to talk to. It was me. So you cry in the shower, you cry out to God. I was begging God to take him because it was getting so bad. And you don't even know how to express that to anybody. And I go back and think, God, how cool it had been if I just had somebody to just call and say, hey, I'm drowning. I am drowning. We're nearing the end. I'm just a tough day. I just need to talk to somebody. And then, you wipe your tears and you get back up so I weighed all of that. And, I continue to say this, we have to do better as agencies, as much as we want to take on, we're talking about suicide, we're talking about alcoholism, we're talking about mental health, but this is a part of all of that because exposures are so real in this job and the numbers are so staggering. I don't even know how we can't avoid it. That's where we're at. You can't avoid it any longer.
Right. Well, and we started off with talking about, how you've got to, understand sometimes of how you got to where you are, but that's exactly why you got to where you are, because you felt that need to go, I didn't have anybody at the time. And that's I think what we're trying to do across the board, whether, it's cancer, whether it's the mental health and wellness, whether it's, is just having those conversations now and letting people who are willing, because let's get it right about law enforcement officers and law enforcement in general. We're pig-headed and and we know it all. And when we face something, we feel that we can handle everything, no matter how bad it is, up until the day that we're gone. And we're starting to realize, and with these conversations and with what you're doing and with what a lot of people are out there doing, as I mentioned earlier, with Survive First, with Lighthouse, with Trauma Behind the Badge, and with all the other individuals who are resources out there for individuals who are going, hold on a minute. Stop being a jackass. Like, understand that you can not only help yourself, but you can help others with doing what you're doing. It's going to benefit both of you. It's going to benefit what you do. We do this podcast, and I say it all the time ad nauseum, and I know people get sick of listening to it when they hear my podcast going, that's why I do this podcast.
Right.
This is therapy for me. This is what I do, talking about these things, putting it out there, letting people know that they're not by themselves, that I'm willing to sit on here and I care less for the people that listen and understand. If it helps one person, great. I don't mind telling my story to them because it is what it is. If it helps you want to reach out to, Blue Cancer Connect now because you've heard this podcast and you understand there's people out there that have been down that road. If you want to reach out to peer groups, if you want to do something, know that you can do something. Don't be, by us going through what we went through at the time, by Vicki having to go through as a family member dealing with her husband at that time, dealing with cancer and passing away from it and having nobody. There's a lot of people out there right now that have nobody, but you don't have nobody. There is resources now out there that people are willing to take your phone call and they're willing to listen to you and they're willing to respond to you and help you. And that's why I have Vicki on. That's why I have a lot of people on. But cancer to me, obviously, is something that's a big deal because I've dealt with it. And to her point, I have not. The reason that kind of we connected is nobody was doing this. Nobody is doing this at all. So at least that voice is starting to be there. And I appreciate everything you're doing, Vicki. And I appreciate, sometimes from tragedy comes what's needed.
Right.
And that's kind of where we see a lot of our, our cohorts and our friends and the people that are doing these in our spaces are doing what they're doing, spending their time because they care. They're spending their time to let you know, please don't go through what we went through. That's why we're here and doing this. So I know you've got a lot of things brewing and a lot of things coming up. So why don't you give us a little shot at what you got going on now and what you got coming up in the future?
A lot of exciting things. So we have a lot of firsts. Probably going to let the cat out of the bag here. Like I said, the peer training, there's never been anything done like this. And I'm very proud to say Rich Kramer is heading this. August 6th, we launched the first one out here in Southern California, and that we would love to really build inside agencies. We think that can be very detrimental and just really life-changing for a lot of people. We will have praying in October, the first ever cancer retreat for spouses. So it will be kept small and it will be for those that are in cancer. Very healing time, very little bit of therapy available. Looking at bringing in some chefs. Our ultimate goal with this retreat is that we want you to leave couple things. One, with hope, no matter where you're at in this journey. And we would like to start unifying our law enforcement families. So, like myself, if I left this retreat with my husband, I now have 5 other families to lean on. And no matter what happens, we're in this together. And we've talked about, like, you go into remission and you beat it, and now you're going on family vacations together. God forbid one of you doesn't make it. Those people are there supporting you, checking on you. So we're pretty excited about that. And as you know, in Southern California, we had some pretty horrific fires out here. I have actually kind of taken this on with working with the health department. Very, very blessed. And I want to give a huge shout out to the fire department, to the IAFF. A lot of firemen have stepped in and asked, how can we help your organization bring awareness quicker so that you guys can start getting the funding, the data, that basically you can have what we have, because the exposures are no different. And they are absolutely no different at all. So with those fires, it opened up a lot of doors. We know this is going to turn out, it's going to be bad, probably in about the next 5 to 7 years from the exposures. We unfortunately sent our law enforcement out there completely exposed, no masks, no anything, and very concerning. But again, I feel very blessed that it opened these doors with fire. And I'm actually working with LA County Fire right now at our academy level. We're going to start training together. They're going to help me explain why these exposure forms are so important, to better understand exposures, and kind of unify police and fire again. Just here in my back door, I feel like we have a million projects on the books. I'm going to go back out and start speaking again. I'm pretty excited about 2026. Made a couple commitments already, and just very grateful for every opportunity that's given to us. I just feel that every move that we make is just continuing to bring awareness and kind of forcing the hand of our agencies to really have to look at this. And there's going to come a point that they're just going to say, all right, we're giving in. Like we have to do something. We're giving in. Until then, we just stay in the fight. And we are, I believe, in the next, hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have a satellite office on the East Coast. Just because the numbers are so staggering. So we're growing, we're working, we're building. Very grateful for, everyone involved with this, and just, the continued sworn and retired that want to be involved and want to help. And, I think our biggest obstacle obviously is money. We have no salaries. We don't pay any salaries out of the organization, but it's the financial hit that our officers are taking. And, we do everything we can. We do have a big event, August 24th. We're doing a one-day tournament, law enforcement and fire in a basketball tournament. That's our next big fundraiser. So reach out if you'd like to be involved or be a sponsor. And I've actually, we all hate asking for money, but I've looked at what people donate to, like the American Cancer Society or these huge organizations. And, only about 30 to 40% of that money even goes to cancer research. So I've started asking our Blue Line families, why not become a $5 monthly donor to Blue Cancer Connect? Because that money goes directly to our officers. And,
Right.
I walked in those shoes. I remember asking my husband if we had to sell our house, and I didn't have a problem with it, but I didn't know what this looked like. Right. And, as we continue just to see our officers saying, I'm going to reach a point I can't pay my bills. I'm going to reach a point that I'm going to run out of leave. I'm a single mom with 3 kids at home. I don't even know how long I can keep food on the table. Why not give to a cause where it is, number one, going directly to law enforcement, but it's those with cancer. Yes, these big organizations are great, but the problem is, and this is what I keep saying, when we go to them as first responders or just law enforcement, they're not willing to do anything in return for us. So I don't want to say I have a problem, but I have a little bit of a problem with the huge donations going to them. Because if that's the case, then what's in it for us? What is in it? You want us to support your 5K or you want us to do a 5K for you, but what do our officers get in return? Do they get treatment quicker? Do they get in sooner? Do you do screenings for them? And we've just found that it's no across the board. So, like I said, it's always hard asking for money. I think I'm pretty bold with it now because I know everything that we do goes directly to our families and will continue to go directly to them. So, like I said, I would love for sponsors for the event. We're working on it right now. Extremely happy. We're in the Fire and Police Olympics week right now. And the teams from there have committed to play. So very grateful. They think it's an amazing cause. But we're just going to keep fighting, Chris. We're going to fight this and we're obviously growing very, very quickly this year, but we want the resources. We want the funding. We want presumptive laws nationwide. We want what law enforcement deserves.
I think that's a great way to end it. I don't think I could say much more than that, other than, she has it right when she talks about donating to things that are going to go back to, our law enforcement and our first responder community. I'm going to just put it as a whole, because over the years, I have to say, I know that they don't do anything for you. They do not. And organizations like Blue Cancer Connect and other agencies that are out there that are specifically targeting the assistance for our law enforcement brothers and sisters should be who you're giving to. Stop giving to these big organizations that are paying multi-million-dollar, salaries to these CEOs. And you can go look it up. Trust me. I know it's, they put it out there a lot. So we're going to have a link on our podcast. Please go to bluecancerconnect.org and please donate. $5 a month is not a lot. I'm sure a lot of you are spending more than that a monthly on Candy Crush or some other thing you're doing. Just give $5, you're good. I know, we can do this all the time. I'm happy for the peer thing. I'm looking forward to it. Rich is a great guy who does a lot on peer support. And actually, I keep busting his stones because I'm trying to get him on this podcast and he's too damn busy, but he will be on soon. Trust me.
Yeah,
because I won't let them get away with not being on it.
Yeah,
So,
I will say this, Chris, all of you guys have just been such a huge asset to this organization. I love, and I want you to know, love and appreciate everyone that in this like-minded wellness space. I think, I always say it, we're stronger together. We can we can move mountains together. You just have to find your tribe and find the people with the same mission and vision. And yeah, I think together, we can really, really impact our officers and stay in the fight for them.
I love that. Use my word. Find your tribe.
I love those words.
I know I'm getting out there. Using my word. Find your tribe. Yes. And I'm so happy that you are part of that tribe for me, Vicki. We will have you on again soon. Keep doing what you're doing. I thank you very much for taking the time. I know you are very busy, but I will see you soon, most definitely.
Yes.
And we will make sure that we continue to get the Blue Cancer Connect word out there. I'm going to leave you with this. Donate, donate, donate. Donate to all these people who are really trying to make a difference for you, for the law enforcement officers, for your families. Donate to those people because those are the people that are helping you. Not forego the others. These are the people that are helping law enforcement, and they are our Blue family. So thank you very much. Vicki, take care. It was a pleasure, and we will see you next time on the Deep Blue Project.
Thank you, Chris.
You've been listening to the Deep Blue Project. As a father, husband, friend, and someone who loves to chat about anything and everything, Chris brings over 3 decades of public service experience to the table. With a background in firefighting and law enforcement, along with degrees in criminal justice and behavioral science, he's seen it all, and he's learned a thing or two along the way. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on LinkedIn and X at Deep Blue Project. find our website at deepblueproject.com, and to reach out, send an email to deepblueproject@outlook.com. Keep keeping it real, and we'll see you next time on the Deep Blue Project.